Absolute Mr. Freeze is an absolute demon. Let's talk about it. Now, Absolute Mr. Freeze is a variation of Mr. Freeze in the Absolute line from DC. The Absolute line in DC is similar to the Ultimates line in Marvel, where they generally have a darker take on traditional characters. And they definitely are not disappointing when it comes to Absolute Mr. Freeze. Now, the traditional story of Mr. Freeze is one that a lot of Batman fans are very familiar with. And that is Victor Freeze being a scientist whose body becomes altered when he's trying to save his wife, Nora. But the Absolute line does something very unique and turns this story upside down. You see, even though Mr. Freeze is a villain in the DC universe, his story is kind of one that I've always felt empathy towards. Because if we're really being honest, he's just a man that's trying to do whatever it takes to keep his love alive. But Absolute Mr. Freeze really brings alive that metaphor that the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions. It begs to ask you the question, what would Nora actually think about what he's done? Because in the Absolute line, Victor Freeze is not Mr. Freeze. Well, at least not the Victor Freeze we've come to know and love. You see, in this storyline, it's not Freeze's wife that comes down with an illness that needs to be cured. Instead, it's their son, Victor Jr. And with his parents being cryologists and world-renowned doctors, they do come up with a way to save his life. But this comes at a grave cost to his mental state and his body. See, most of the time when Nora is woken up by Batman or any type of events in the comic books or media, she describes being frozen like she's dreaming, but she can still hear Victor. But this was not the case when it came to Absolute Mr. Freeze. As a matter of fact, he felt everything. He said that his parents thought that the ice was a form of purity, a form of beauty, that it was a way for the planet to keep things beautiful, keep things intact, waiting for them to reveal themselves to the world again. But this wasn't the case when it came to Victor. He was just alone with his thoughts, causing him to go insane, with nothing but his illness and pain to keep him company. And this to me is a great metaphor for what people go through when it comes to illness, pain, and death. I'm pretty sure some of us know someone somewhere that has gone through some type of illness and that has just given up. And a lot of people who know people that have diseases like cancer go through this all the time, where they're going through things with chemotherapy and radiation, and it gets to the point where they're just like, hey, you know what, man, I'm done. Whatever happens, happens. I just want to go out peacefully. And a lot of times people look at this as the person giving up. But with maturing, you realize that that's kind of selfish. You're only saying that from a lens of someone who's healthy and that's not going through what that other person is going through. And yes, it's you wanting to see them live, but it's also dealing with the fact that you're not really ready to see them go. You want them to stay around in any capacity, even if that means them suffering. And one form of media that really captured this very well was in the Arkham games when Nora was actually reunited with Mr. Freeze. He said that he didn't want to see her die, and her response to that was, well, then let me live. But what Absolute Mr. Freeze did in response to that was he made them feel exactly what he felt by cryogenically freezing both of his parents. But Absolute Victor Freeze goes on to say that within the ice, it was a living hell, and that within this ice, it was a bacterium that was awoken when he was put into it. This caused him to mutate and turn into this grotesque humanoid insect-like thing that we see in the Absolute line. Now, aside from his looks, one of the key things that separates this Victor Freeze from the original is that, of course, aside from Victor Freeze being able to freeze people with a touch, and also him needing a suit to be able to survive outside of cryogenic temperatures, Mr. Freeze in the regular Batman universe is pretty much like an ordinary person. And I can already hear the comment section going crazy. What I mean by this is that he's susceptible to things that would hurt a normal everyday person, and his strength, speed, and durability is that of a normal everyday man. However, this is not the case with Absolute Mr. Freeze. He doesn't need a suit to be able to survive in normal everyday temperatures, and he definitely has enhanced speed, strength, and durability, being able to throw this 6'9", 400-something pound Batman through a wall with ease. And he can transform into what I'm calling his Frost Demon form at will. So this Absolute line once again has done a fantastic job with putting a new twist on an old character, because to me it reminds me of the age-old story of the kid and the butterfly, where a kid captures a butterfly and puts it in a jar because he thinks that it's beautiful. Or in some versions of the story, it's a kid that captures a caterpillar and puts it in a jar because he wants to see it turn into a butterfly, but it ends up dying because it doesn't have the space or the room to grow. And that's what happened here. And the need to be able to keep their love for their son alive, they end up inadvertently creating a monster. But the Absolute line is turning out way better than what I expected. I thought it was kind of going to be a copycat version of the Flashpoint universe, but it's way better. But let me know what y'all think in the comment section. What do you think about this absolute nightmare fuel Mr. Freeze? Until next time, peace.